Bobby Eaton. You're watching Ringside Championship Wrestling.
Tonight, I have an invitational tournament. That means I have to beat 2 guys. For me, that's an off.
Good. Let's just put it that way. Look at this. Inside cradle. 1, 2, and 3. Eric Wayne took advantage of the injury to Gary Graham. And it resulted the Dream Killer Eric King advancing to the finals of the Cherry Valley Invitational Tournament. Eric Wayne, he took advantage. Jeremy Moore is going to be a part of the Vienna Boys Choir singing soprano. Oh, I've lost count. Those jewels are rattled. And Moore lost face first. Well, we saw Eric Wayne suffer some groin damage in his matchup. And certainly Jeremy Moore. And now, oh, look at this. Jeremy Moore is saying, I don't want any more of you, Danny Dollar. Danny asking the fans, oh, wait a minute. Moore saw an opening. Roll up here, handful of tights, but he gets the victory. Unbelievable. Moore gets the victory. He will advance to the finals of the Cherry Valley Invitational Tournament here at Unfinished Business 2016. Wow. Here with you on another exciting episode of RCW Ringside Edition TV, and certainly want to welcome each and every one of you to our broadcast, whether you're watching us on Fidelity Local 6 or on KAIT TV8 in the Jonesboro, Northeast Arkansas, Southeast Missouri region. We are certainly honored and privileged to have you with us, and we are growing by leaps and bounds. Certainly excited to have 2 major platforms to bring you Ringside Championship Wrestling. We also now will be broadcasting the archives of this very television program online. Find out about it either by going to rcwringside.com. Check us out on Facebook. It's facebook.com/RCW Ringside, or our YouTube page as well. Certainly many ways to stay up to date with Ringside Championship Wrestling. And everybody seems to be watching. We heard from one of the all-time greats, a true pro wrestling legend, beautiful Bobby Eaton of the Midnight Express. He is even tuning in to RCW. Of course, he competed here in Ringside Championship Wrestling during our initial run 7 years ago. Good to see beautiful Bobby Eaton, and he looks certainly in great health these days. Bobby, hope you're doing very, very well out there. Look forward to seeing you down the road. Well, this time on RCW Ringside Edition TV, we are going to bring you the finals of the RCW Cherry Valley Invitational Tournament held last May in Cherry Valley, Arkansas. We saw last time on our program what happened. It was Dream Killer Eric Wayne advancing in the tournament, picking up a win over Gary Roosevelt Graham. And then in controversial fashion, the epitome of sports entertainment, the man Jeremy Moore, defeating Danny Dollar. Of course, looked like he had a handful of tights. Referee didn't see it. If he doesn't see it, he cannot call it. And that is what brings us to this program. This episode of RCW Ringside Edition TV, the finals will take place. You will see the epitome of sports entertainment, Jeremy Moore, taking on the third-generation wrestling superstar, Dream Killer Eric Wayne, with the Cherry Valley Invitational Tournament title up for grabs. And we'll also give you a preview of things to come on a future broadcast of this very program. All that Alan Steele and Derrick King, these two were on a collision course, a rivalry that spread many, many years. In RCW terms, it was 6 years in the making. We're going to show you that match on a future edition of this broadcast. However, on this program, right here today, right here, right now, we're going to get comments from All That Alan Steele. He was interviewed by Tom Simon. Tom Simon, a member of the RCW Board of Directors, he had a surprise for All That Alan Steele. Let's take a look and find out what the surprise was right now.
To absolutely demolish Derrick King this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for All That Alan Steele!
But see, hold on, let me talk to the cameraman over here. But you see, tonight is 6 years in the making. Tonight actually is about 19 years in the making. Because see, this event, the biggest thing to come to this closed up town, this event is called Unfinished Business. And that's because there's a rivalry that goes back longer than half of these people can remember. 19 years, Derrick King and myself have been fighting each other in every town, every state, every country that we can get booked against each other in. And tonight is the last straw, Tom. And one of us has got to draw the short straw, and after 6 years for RCW, the short straw definitely belongs to Derrick King.
I cannot wait. I am excited about this, but my brother, I told you there was a reason that I came.
Oh yeah.
It was not just to see you.
What?
I've got a surprise for you.
I love surprises.
You love surprises, I know. I mean, you are a GP kind of guy.
That's for me, baby.
All right. Mr. Music Man, hit that music. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have been under a rock and have not seen TCW, this is the brain behind genetic perfection. He is the manager.
That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rich Rude.
Thank you. Tom, you overdid yourself. We got like 218 days till Christmas, but it feels like it's already here.
That's right, brother. I told you I had something special in mind for tonight. Ryan Thompson told me it's all about unfinished business. It's all about things left unsaid and things left undone. Tonight, with Rich Rude in your corner, I have no doubt in my mind that I'm going to see, once again, perfection in the ring. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for All That Alan Steele and the manager, Rich Rude. Rich, I forgot. I'm so excited. I forgot to hand you the mic because I know you probably got a couple of things you want to get off your chest.
Well, you know, Tom Simon, I am so honored to be here tonight. And it took the money man to get me here. Oh yeah, a lot of money. Lots and lots. A picture mail on 10 with hundreds of people. All of here tonight. But you know what? We don't come cheap. Tonight, it says unfinished, it will be finished once and for good.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, in the main event tonight, there will be some guy named Derrick against All That Alan Steele and the manager, Rich Rude.
Now you're gonna see a real main event. That's right. That's right.
the action, the excitement, the fan-friendly, family-friendly atmosphere of Ringside Championship Wrestling to your town. Do you have a fundraiser? Do you have a need in your community that we can support and help? Ringside Championship Wrestling is here, and we want to be your partner. Bring all the superstars. We can even bring a legend or two to your town as part of your partnership with Ringside Championship Wrestling. For more details, call or text today. 417-650-6118, and we will hook up with you and bring Ringside Championship Wrestling live to your community for a great cause.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cherry has asked me to let you know before I make the introductions, he is absolutely appalled at the abhorrent way that you have treated him, the NWA Mid-South Unified Champion, and don't shoot the messenger, folks. These are his words, not mine. He says that he will leave the building if you do not shut up and show him the respect that he deserves. And he is not a chicken. Now for the introductions, in the corner to my right, he comes to us from his summer residence in Hollywood, Florida, weighing 186.7 pounds with a 9.67% body fat. He is the NWA Mid-South Unified Champion, the epitome of sports entertainment, Jeremy Moore.
Excuse me, I had to clear my throat. I'm allergic to bush. Jeremy, these people don't seem to like me very much. I really can't say I blame them. I'm used to going places and people not liking me, but I'm pretty over right here in Cherry Valley, Arkansas. What do you say? But Jeremy, your title is bigger than you are. I don't know if you knew that, and I heard your promo earlier. I saw you when you got here, and I got a point. Don't put your hands up like that. I got a point with this. I heard your promo earlier, and I heard you come out here, and you talked real high like this, and you didn't like Cherry Valley. And I thought it was just because you were younger than me, but then I realized the pants you had on were tighter than my girlfriend's pants. So I don't know if you had your girlfriend's pants on, but I would suggest that you don't do that again, because it makes you talk like this and you don't sound like a champion. These people are going to see me pin you right here in the middle of the ring. Let's count this together for a pinfall. 1, 2, 3. So Jeremy Moore, they call me the Dream Killer. Your dream of holding on to that title and winning this tournament, it ends right now, tonight. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Go ahead and finish, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, he is a first-class, second-to-none, third-generation superstar from Pensacola, Florida, weighing 219 pounds. He is a multi-time regional heavyweight champion, the Dream Killer, Derrick King. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we ring the bell, it must be noted that the winner of this match will be the winner of the Cherry Valley Invitational Tournament.
Wrestling fans, Brian Thompson ringside here with you. It is the finals of the Cherry Valley Invitational Tournament 2016, courtesy here of RCW Home Video. You heard the interaction between these two great young athletes. The Dream Killer, Derrick King, you see him on the left-hand side of your viewing screen now, the focus is on his opponent, the epitome of sports entertainment, Jeremy Moore. Let's recap how both of these individuals made it to this point in the tournament. It was Jeremy Moore defeating Danny Dollar. Jeremy Moore, the video shows you, had a handful of tights. No doubt about it, Jeremy Moore, the video does not lie. He did have some tights, but he was victorious. Referee did not see that interaction. Therefore, if you can't call what you cannot see. Now wait a minute, Eric Wayne had seconds ago took someone's cap. If you have a front row seat at Ringside Championship Wrestling, you might want to hold on to your hats. You never know when one of our superstars will acquire them for their needs. Glad to have you with us as part of this big tournament that has taken place. 4 incredible athletes had the honor of participating in the tournament. We're down to the final 2. It was Eric Wayne in a victory against Gary Roosevelt Graham in the first round. Eric showing his dance moves, the dirty chicken, or whatever you want to call it, the funky chicken, I guess. I don't know that Eric Wayne won any late night dance contest anywhere, but he is a great wrestler and has been around this entire wrestling world ever since he came out of the womb. He is a 3rd generation wrestling superstar. Many of you remember his dad, his grandfather, Buddy Wayne, the late great Buddy Wayne, as Jeremy Moore is upset at these great fans for yelling and joining in with Eric Wayne in these chicken chants. Now wait a minute, Eric Wayne has the NWA Mid-South Unified title. At this particular point in time was held by Jeremy Moore. And you heard Eric Wayne's comments. Had a little bit of fun at the expense of Jeremy Moore. Eric Wayne said that belt is bigger than Jeremy. Well,
put your title on the line right now.
He's wanting to say, why don't we go ahead and put this title on the line? Well, we are not affiliated with NWA Mid-South, great promotion in the Dyersburg, Tennessee area, but we have no authority as far as allowing a title match to occur in that sense of affiliation, so that will not happen. However, the prestigious Cherry Valley Invitational Tournament distinction is on the line in this battle. Eric Wayne in his matchup, it was a very competitive event against Gary Roosevelt Graham. And Eric Wayne was able to capitalize on an injury to Graham, whereas earlier in the contest, Graham did not have the same killer instinct, and it might have worked against Roosevelt Graham in that battle. But those are matches from the past. We are now in the present here at Unfinished Business 2016. This is your championship match. We will crown a tournament winner right here, right now. Jeremy Moore, will he shake the hand of Eric Wayne? Eric Wayne asked him to do so. Let's see if we have some sportsmanship here. Oh, and wait a minute, Jeremy Moore. Moore tried to outsmart Eric Wayne. He had something devious in mind with that foot of his, but it was to no avail as Eric Wayne has caught the foot now and continues to hold on to it. Sweeps the leg out from Jeremy Moore. And Jeremy Moore's beautiful face, as he will obviously tell you, he's handsome, even has hashtag handsome on the back of his tights. The face of Jeremy Moore was introduced to the canvas. Jeremy Moore does not like that. And this is strategy right here as Jeremy Moore takes his oh-so-sweet time maneuvering in and out of the ring. Kind of a psych-out job, or at least that's his goal. Referee for this battle, Danny Jackson, going to have his hands full with these two. No doubt about it, 2 great athletes. Both men have been around this sport for the better part of 10 years in ring. Now, we mentioned Eric Wayne. He's been around it his entire life. Even as a young child, I think they had him in the ring crawling around trying to learn the ropes a little bit. So it's going to take a lot to fool him. Jeremy Moore, he's seen some pretty heavy battles in his career. So this is a pretty, I would call it a pretty evenly matched contest. Again, Jeremy Moore, after that situation there, just slides on out of the ring, is going to take his oh-so-sweet time. Seems a little bit frustrated.
I'm not scared.
But he's telling the people, though, that he's not scared. Okay, good for
Ladies and
you.
gentlemen, 5 minutes have passed in this match. 5 minutes have passed.
5 5 minutes into the battle. He's complaining to referee Douglas Hart, or excuse me, not referee, ring announcer Douglas Hart.
Cherry, I want you to know that he will not concentrate to get off his back, stay off his face, or he's out of here.
Jeremy Moore obviously flustered by these great fans in Cherry Valley, Arkansas. He needs to be focused, though, on Dream Killer Eric Wayne, the opposition, or if he does not completely focus on Wayne, it will be the Dream Killer, the third-generation wrestling superstar out of Pensacola, Florida, going home with the Cherry Valley Invitational Tournament crown. Certainly want to thank you for your continued support of Ringside Championship Wrestling as we hope to continue growth, prosperity, and there's only one reason for it, and that is your support, your financial contributions every time you purchase a ticket, or your contribution by watching our programming. Without you, there is no us, and we certainly are very thankful for you. Eric Wayne grinding in with the side headlock. Jeremy Moore firing back with some shots to the midsection. Stay up to date with Ringside Championship Wrestling at RCWRingside.com. Like us on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter, all at RCW Ringside. YouTube as well. And speaking of, well, we won't. That right there is pretty self-explanatory. I certainly hope the significant other of Jeremy Moore is not watching because, well, she's got some bad. She's going to have some. Lonely nights. Let's just put it that way. We're a PG product, ladies and gentlemen. Now, come on, Eric. Don't do this, Eric. Now this may be a little bit too far right here. For the epitome. Oh my! Oh man. Well, as Eric Wayne saying that it was more trying to give him maybe a mule kick or something there, and that's what led to what just happened. And oh, yeah. Well, that's pretty. As a announcer, as a commentator, there's not, most of the time I'm not at a loss for words. Right there, I don't even need to use words to describe what you just saw. Pretty self-explanatory. Oh, this is not going to be good. The groin area now is the worst for wear of Jeremy Moore. Eric Wayne asking the fans if he should do this. Oh, wait a minute, referee Danny Jackson versus the tension. Eric Wayne drops an elbow. He didn't go. He kept it legal. He was above the line there. So, yeah, in the thigh area. Drop the elbow in. And Jeremy Moore is hurting for certain. The way Eric Wayne teasing doing so one more time. That would not be good for the epitome of sports entertainment. Ringside Championship Wrestling is certainly excited to be a part of many communities throughout multiple states. We're in Missouri, Arkansas, even portions of Texas are now checking out Ringside Championship Wrestling. And certainly this event, Unfinished Business 2016, was a huge event, very successful, helped the local Cherry Valley, Arkansas food pantry raise funds for their ongoing sustainability. They have a local pantry that serves hundreds of people on an annual basis. Families that just need that extra little helping hand, that extra food, and we're glad to have helped them. And we'd love to help your community. Now, oh, watch out there. Jeremy Moore not taking advantage of Eric Wayne, mistimed getting on the top, or getting on the turnbuckles. Mistake by the Dream Killer. And Jeremy Moore took advantage. He's zoned in now. Wait a minute, it looks like he's gouging the eyes of Eric Wayne. Wayne in trouble. But as mentioned, we certainly were honored and privileged to help the Cherry Valley Food Pantry. We want to help your local community organization. If you have a need and you think we can partner up, give us a call, 417-650-6118. Give us a call, give us a text. We will do our best to connect with you and hopefully work out some arrangement to bring Ringside Championship Wrestling entertainment, fan-friendly, family-friendly entertainment, as well as profitable for your organization. Back elbow.
10 minutes have passed.
10 minutes have passed and a back elbow by the epitome of sports entertainment, Jeremy Moore. If things continue in this manner, it will be Moore as your Cherry Valley Invitational Tournament champion. And Jeremy Moore having an argument here, and it's going to cost him. Knife-edge chop by the Dream Killer. And Eric Wayne now. Oh, another one on the floor. You can hear that. Those unforgiving chops by Eric Wayne. Well, Eric Wayne missed, was able to hold off, not hit the post, but then Jeremy Moore introduces Eric Wayne face first into that steel post. And that steel post is very unforgiving. It's Jeremy Moore now putting the boots to Eric Wayne. Come on. Jeremy Moore now telling referee Danny Jackson to count him out, count him out. Looks like Eric Wayne is even trying to request a mask from one of the fans. Eric Wayne has received a mask from one of our ringside fans. May feel like his face has been damaged from the shot into the steel post. So wait a minute. I must think he's a nightmare or something. Watch out here. Eric Wayne put a mask on momentarily. In that confusion, Jeremy Moore attacked, and now he's going to toss the Dream Killer into the apron of the ring, and now back into the ring, or thought he was going to. Oh man, Eric Wayne dropping Jeremy Moore down hard onto that apron part of the ring, one of the hardest parts of a pro wrestling ring. Now this thing's getting out of hand. This thing is getting totally out of hand. This is not a no disqualification match. Referee Danny Jackson's going to have to step in here, get that chair out of the ring, and with a lapse there, Eric Wayne got caught in the eyes again by the epitome of sports entertainment, who delivers now with a big right hand. Eric Wayne just kind of lost control there for a minute or two. Put the mask on, grabbed a chair. And Jeremy Moore was able to take advantage. Now he is pounding away at Eric Wayne. Elbow dropped hard. Second one delivers. Third time may be the charm, or was it 2 count only? Still a lot of life left of the Dream Killer, Eric Wayne. As a matter of fact, I remember personally having the honor of broadcasting a 60-minute match he had during his training as a pro wrestler. The final test, so to speak, or the final exam was a 60-minute match against another trainee by the name of Killer Nicholas. They went on to some time in WWE NXT. Those two, even in their young rookie years, showed that they had the stamina and skill. So that what that says to me is that Eric Wayne can go. And we're not that many minutes in the match, 10 or 12 minutes now, but if it requires 60 minutes, Eric Wayne can go the distance. Eric Wayne trying to battle back up now. Big shot in the midsection. Inverted atomic drop. Another one. Those jewels of the epitome of sports entertainment have been rattled throughout this entire unfinished business event. Swinging a miss on a clothesline. Oh, wait a minute. Up goes Moore. Moore trying to spin up out of it. Moore backing away now. Eric Wayne moving referee Danny Jackson out of the way. Look at Jeremy Moore. Oh, he's got those feet on the ropes again. Just like him. There's Danny Dollar. There's Danny Dollar. Now that's how you remember Jeremy Moore beat Danny Dollar with tights in a similar type situation. He's about to do the same thing to Eric Wayne. Referee following out. We got chaos here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the referee just informed me that the winner by disqualification and thus the winner of the Cherry Valley Arkansas Invitational Tournament, Jeremy.
Oh, man. Oh, that's unfortunate. Danny Dollar just simply trying to explain what happened, what was about to happen to Eric Wayne. Emotions got the better of him, and that means Jeremy Moore is your winner of the Cherry Valley Invitational Tournament, and obviously Eric Wayne dumbfounded. He's upset here at Unfinished Business.